My family deliberately excluded me from our vacation, thinking I wouldn't notice while I was sick. They wanted my $8.05 M beach house all to themselves. They forgot one thing. I'm an architect, I designed the house, and I built the trap right into the legal framework. The envelope I sent made my mother finally realize who the real villain was. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The call came on a Tuesday, the kind of gray, listless afternoon that perfectly matched the ache in my bones. I was 3 weeks out from a nasty bout of pneumonia, still feeling like my lungs were made of wet cardboard. I was propped up on my sofa, buried in blankets, nursing a cup of tea that had long gone cold. My phone buzzed on the side table, the screen lighting up with a picture of my brother Marcus. "Hey Mark," I answered, my voice still raspy. "Rosie, hey, how are you feeling? You sound better." His voice was too bright, too forced. Marcus was a wonderful musician but a terrible liar. "Getting there," I said, adjusting a pillow behind my back. "Still weak, but the fever's gone. What's up? Are you and the kids okay?" "Oh, yeah, everyone's great." "Great. Hey, listen, I was just calling to check in. Mom and Vanessa are here, we're all just thinking about you, sending good vibes." Something pricked at the back of my mind, a tiny, cold needle of suspicion. "You're all together, that's nice. Where's here?" There was a muffled sound, like he'd covered the receiver with his hand. I heard my sister Vanessa's sharp, unmistakable voice in the background. "Just tell her," she hissed. Marcus came back on the line, his cheerfulness completely gone. "Look, Rosie, we decided to take the kids to the beach house, just for a long weekend, before school starts back." I sat up, the blankets pooling around my waist. The beach house, my beach house, the one I'd designed from the ground up, the one I'd poured millions into, the one that sat on an $8.5 million plot of land I'd bought with my own sweat. "You're at the beach house? Now?" "Yeah, we just got in," he mumbled, the sound of a gull crying faintly in the background. It was a last-minute thing. Vanessa found cheap flights and Mom said you'd want us to use it, that you'd be resting anyway and wouldn't mind. I closed my eyes. It wasn't the fact that they were using it. I'd always been generous with the house. It was the way they'd done it, the secrecy. The call after they'd already arrived. They had planned this. They had waited until I was at my absolute weakest, too sick to travel, too tired to argue. They had packed their bags, driven to the coast, and let themselves in, all while sending me texts saying, "Get well soon." "Rosie, you there?" "I'm here, Marcus," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Did it ever occur to you, to any of you, to ask me?" "Well," Vanessa said. "I don't care what Vanessa said." I cut him off, the old, familiar anger starting to burn through the fog of my illness. "She doesn't own the house. Neither does Mom. I do." "Come on, Rosie, don't be like that," he pleaded. "It's the family house. We just wanted to give the kids some sun." "It's my house, Marcus," I stated, each word a chip of ice. "It has always been my house. You are guests, and guests, as a rule, are invited." I heard Vanessa snatch the phone. "Rosie, for goodness sake, stop being so dramatic. You're sick. We're here. What's the big deal? You're not using it. Honestly, you should be happy we're getting some value out of this absurdly expensive place you keep locked up." "Value?" I whispered, the audacity of it stealing my breath. "Yes, value. It just sits there, Rosie. Mom and I were just talking about it. It's just not fair that you keep it all to yourself. You have your big city apartment. This place," her voice dropped, becoming oily and persuasive, "it really should belong to all of us. Think about it. What if you sold it and shared, or just signed it over? It would change all our lives." And there it was, the real reason for the trip. It wasn't a last-minute getaway. It was an occupation. It was the first move in a campaign, orchestrated by my sister, to guilt me out of my own property. They hadn't just gone on vacation without me. They were trying to steal my home while I was fighting to catch my breath. The betrayal was worse than the illness itself. The silence after I hung up on Vanessa was deafening. My living room, usually a sanctuary of clean lines and quiet light, felt like a tomb. I stared at the phone, my hand trembling not from weakness this time, but from a cold, simmering rage. My own family. My mother, Brenda, who I'd supported financially for a decade. My brother, Marcus, whose music career I'd funded more times than I could count. And Vanessa, my sister, who had always resented my success, her part-time real estate job a constant, bitter reminder of the career she'd failed to launch while mine soared. I sank back into the cushions, the physical toll of the conversation hitting me. My lungs ached, a dull, throbbing pressure. They had done this knowing I was ill, knowing I was vulnerable. That was the part that cut the deepest. They hadn't just seen an opportunity, they had seen my weakness as their advantage. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. "Rosie dear, I'm so sorry you're upset. We just wanted the grandchildren to have a nice time. You know how much they love the ocean. Please don't be cross with Vanessa. She was only trying to help. We all miss you." We all miss you. The hypocrisy was staggering. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled my laptop onto my lap, my movements slow and deliberate. The house wasn't just a house. It was my masterpiece, the culmination of my life's work. I designed it to blend seamlessly with the coastline, a structure of glass and reclaimed timber that was both a fortress and a feather. It had won awards. More than that, it was my refuge, and they were in it. Right now. Probably putting their sandy feet on the custom-made furniture. Vanessa, no doubt, already mentally redecorating. My anger began to clear, solidifying into something colder, sharper, strategy. I was an architect. I built things. I understood foundations, load-bearing walls, and structural integrity. And I had built the legal framework for my beach house with the same meticulous care. I opened a password-protected folder on my drive. Inside was a file named Seaview Holdings, LLC. Vanessa, with her paltry real estate license, thought in terms of deeds and titles. She was an amateur. I thought in terms of corporate entities. The phone rang again. This time, it was a video call from Marcus. I let it ring, then answered, my face set. His image flickered, showing him on the expansive deck, the ocean roaring behind him. He looked miserable. "Rosie, please," he began. "Vanessa is. You know how she gets. And Mom just wants peace." "And what do you want, Marcus?" I asked, my voice flat. I just wanted to see the kids smile, Rosie. They've had a tough year." "So have I said. "I'm looking at my security feed, Marcus. This was a lie, but a plausible one. I see you're all making yourselves very comfortable." He flinched, looking around as if I could actually see him. "What? No, we're being careful. Rosie, please, just let this go. It's just a few days." "A few days," I repeated. Vanessa seemed to think it was more permanent. She mentioned me signing it over. "Was that your idea, too?" "What? No, I didn't. That's just Vanessa talking crazy," he stammered, but he couldn't meet my gaze. He knew. He was in on it, even if just as a reluctant passenger. He was the good cop in their little routine. "I see," I said. I took a slow, rattling breath. "Well, you'd better enjoy the view, Marcus, because I have a feeling the weather's about to turn." I ended the call, my mind already working. They thought I was a pushover. They thought I was a wealthy, childless older sister who was too sick and too tired to fight back. They saw me as a resource to be plundered, not a person to be loved. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just the rich sister. I was the one who had built an empire from scratch. I was the one who read every contract, who understood every blueprint, and who never, ever left a back door unlocked. My family's sense of entitlement had been a slow-growing weed, but I'd been foolishly pulling at the leaves instead of the root. The root, I knew, was Vanessa. She had always been polished on the outside, a trait she'd inherited from our mother, Brenda. But where Mom's polish was about appearances, Vanessa's was a veneer for a grasping, hollow core. She wore designer knockoffs, drove a leased luxury car she couldn't afford, and always introduced herself as a real estate professional. though she'd never closed a deal worth mentioning. Her resentment for me had started decades ago, when I'd gotten a full scholarship to a prestigious architecture program while she dropped out of community college to marry a man who'd left her 5 years later. I had always been the provider. When my father passed, I'd taken over my mother's mortgage. When Marcus's band needed new equipment, I'd written the check. When Vanessa's car was repossessed, I'd bought her a reliable sedan. I'd done it all gladly, believing that's what family did. I saw it as support. They saw it as an obligation. My success wasn't mine, it was theirs to be redistributed. The beach house was the ultimate symbol of that divide. To me, it was art, a sanctuary I'd built after a brutal divorce. To them, it was an $8.5 million asset I was selfishly hoard. Zing! This latest plan, however, was a new low. It wasn't just a passive-aggressive grab for money. It was strategic, and it had Vanessa's fingerprints all over it. I could hear her whispering in my mother's ear, painting me as a lonely, isolated woman who needed her family to manage her affairs. "Mom, she's sick. She's all alone in that big apartment. What if something happens? That house? It should be protected. It should be in the family's name." My mother, Brenda, was the perfect enabler. She craved the image of a happy, close-knit family, and she would appease whoever made the most noise to maintain that illusion. In this case, it was Vanessa. Mom's texts to me were all about keeping the peace and not making a fuss, which was her code for let Vanessa have her way so I don't have to deal with her. And Marcus, dear, talented, weak-willed Marcus, he was the collateral damage, the lure. His children were the innocent reason for the trip. Vanessa knew I'd find it harder to say no if the kids were involved. He was so desperate for his children to have the things he couldn't provide that he'd let himself be a pawn in Vanessa's game, convincing himself it was a victimless crime. I called my lawyer, David. He was a sharp, no-nonsense man who had structured all my holdings. "David," I said, my voice clearer than it had been in weeks, "I have a family problem that has just become a legal one. I need you to draw up a formal notice." "What kind of notice, Rosie?" "A notice of trespass," I said, "addressed to Vanessa, Brenda, and Marcus, to be delivered to my property on the coast, effective immediately." There was a pause. "Trespass, Rosie, are you sure? The police." "No police," I said firmly. "Not yet. This is the first step. I also need you to overnight a package for me. I want you to include a cease and desist, the formal notice of trespass, and a certified copy of the Articles of Incorporation for Seaview Holdings, LLC. David started to laugh, a dry, barking sound. "Ah, they've forgotten about the LLC, haven't they?" "They never knew about it," I replied. "They think my name is on the deed. They think family is a legal term of ownership. They think I'm a sick old woman. It's time to remind them I'm the CEO." "This is going to be memorable," David said. "I'll have a courier on the road by morning." "One more thing, David," I said, a cold blade of an idea forming. "Please include a prepaid return envelope, and let's call it a guest agreement. If they wish to remain for the one night it will take them to pack, they must sign it. The agreement will, of course, include the standard nightly rental fee for a property of that caliber. Let's say $5,000. "Rosie," David said, "you are a beautifully devious woman." "I'm an architect, David," I replied. "I just believe in solid structures." With the legal papers in motion, I felt a surge of energy I hadn't in months. The fog of illness was replaced by the sharp, clarifying focus of a problem to be solved. My family thought this was an emotional dispute. I was about to turn it into a corporate transaction. While David's courier was driving down the coast, I turned my attention to Vanessa. Her plan was based on the assumption of my ignorance and passivity. She was counting on a tearful phone call, a family argument, and my eventual, weary surrender. She was not prepared for a counteroffensive. I hired a private investigator. It felt overly dramatic, but I needed to know the full extent of Vanessa's real estate dealings. I had a suspicion this wasn't just about a vacation home. This might be part of a larger, more desperate financial situation. I need to know about my sister, Vanessa, I told the investigator over the phone. Specifically, her financial health. Debts, liens, any professional complaints. She fancies herself a real estate agent. See if she's any good at it. While he got to work, I did my own digging. I was the architect of that house. I had designed the smart home integration myself. While I didn't have indoor cameras, I valued my own privacy too much. I had full control over the gate, the alarms, and, most importantly, the utilities. I logged into the home's control panel. I saw the air conditioning was running at full blast. The pool heater was on. The exterior floodlights had been on all day. They were treating my home like an all-inclusive resort. A petty, vindictive part of me wanted to shut it all down, cut the power, lock the gates, and strand them. But that was an emotional move. I had to stay strategic. The envelope was the primary weapon. This was just intelligence gathering. I set an alert. The moment the courier's vehicle approached the front gate, I would be notified. The next morning, the investigator called back. His speed was alarming. "Ms. Rossi," he said, "your sister isn't just a bad real estate agent. She's a fraudulent one." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "She's got 2 major complaints filed against her with the state board. She's been accidentally misrepresenting property lines, forgetting to disclose foundation issues. But that's the small stuff. She's in deep. She has over $150,000 in credit card debt and a high-interest personal loan for another $75,000. She's being sued by a former client for commingling a deposit. She's not just broke, ma'am, she's desperate, and she's facing the loss of her license." It all clicked into place. This wasn't just entitlement. This was a shakedown. She needed a massive, immediate infusion of cash. Forcing me to sell the $8.05 M house and share the proceeds, or leveraging it for a loan, was her last-ditch, desperate gambit. She was trying to save herself by sacrificing me. The anger was so profound, so deep, it almost made me dizzy. She wasn't just greedy. She was dangerous. She was willing to destroy my relationship with my entire family to cover her own tracks. Just then my phone pinged. The alert from my front gate. The courier had arrived. I took a deep, steadying breath. Phase 1 was complete. Now the trap was sprung. I pictured the scene, the bright, sunny morning, the sound of the waves, and a uniformed man walking up to my front door, holding a crisp, white, legally binding envelope that was about to detonate their entire vacation. The phone call came exactly 34 minutes after the courier's alert. It wasn't Marcus's hesitant ring or my mother's apologetic text. It was the furious, frantic buzzing of Vanessa's number. I let it ring 3 times, then answered, putting the call on speaker. "Hello, Vanessa." "What did you do?" she shrieked. Her voice was sharp, cracking with panic. "What is this? What is this envelope?" "I believe it's self-explanatory," I said calmly, sipping a fresh cup of tea. "It's a legal notice. David, my lawyer, is very thorough. A notice of trespass. How dare you? This is our family's home." "No, Vanessa," I said, my voice hardening. "This is where you are fundamentally mistaken, and your sloppy work as a real estate professional is showing. It is not, and has never been, our home. It is the primary asset of Seaview Holdings, LLC, of which I am the sole director. You are not shareholders. You are not board members. You are simply occupants. And as of 10:00 a.m. this morning, you are trespassing." There was a choked sound, a gasp of pure, unfiltered outrage. You, LLC, you put the house in a company." "Of course I did," I said, as if explaining a simple design choice. "It's standard practice for asset protection. It protects me from liability, and, as it turns in, it protects me from predatory family members." I heard my mother's voice in the background, thin and reedy. "Vanessa, what is she saying? What is an LLC? Tell her to stop this." "You can't do this, Rosie," Vanessa yelled, clearly ignoring Mom. "We're family. You're going to kick your own mother out, your brother, your nieces and nephews." "You're the one who put them in this position, Vanessa," I said. "You're the one who lied. You're the one who brought them to a property you have no legal right to, all as part of a desperate, pathetic attempt to cover your own financial crimes. The line went dead silent. The only sound was the faint cry of the gulls from her end of the line. I had struck a nerve, a very specific, very raw nerve. What did you say?" she whispered, all the bluster gone, replaced by a cold, sharp fear. "I hired an investigator, Vanessa," I said. "I know about the $150,000 in credit card debt. I know about the $75,000 personal loan. I know about the lawsuit from your client, the one whose deposit you commingled. I know you're about to lose your license. This little vacation wasn't a family trip. It was a heist. You needed me to sell the house to pay off your debts. You spied on me. I protected my assets. You would have done well to learn the difference." She began to sputter, a torrent of poorly executed threats and obvious lies. "That's not true. That client was a liar. My finances are. They're fine. You're the one who's sick. You're confused, Mom," she shrieked away from the phone. "Mom, she's gone crazy. She's making things up." But the mask had shattered. Her panic was an admission of guilt. I heard Marcus's voice, low and stunned. "Vanessa, is that true, what she's saying? Is it true?" "It doesn't matter," Vanessa screamed. "She's a liar. She's a cold, selfish witch, and she's trying to make us homeless." "Not homeless, Vanessa," I corrected her, my voice now lethally calm. "You have homes. You just aren't allowed to be in my home. David was very clear in his instructions. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. Or you can sign the guest agreement and pay the nightly fee, $5,000. Consider it a family discount." I hung up. I sat back, my heart pounding, but not from fear. It was the exhilarating, terrifying rush of adrenaline. The first wave had hit. The foundations she'd built her entire plan on, my love, my guilt, my supposed weakness, had just been washed away. The family's retreat was immediate and chaotic. I watched on my gate's log as their cars sped away less than 2 hours after my call. There was no signed guest agreement, no $5,000, just a panicked, disorderly exit. My mother, Brenda, sent me a single text. "I can't believe you've done this to us. Your sister is devastated. We are going home." I didn't reply. Devastated was a good start. For a week there was silence. A deep, cold radio silence from my mother and Vanessa. The investigator's full report landed in my email, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Vanessa hadn't just commingled funds, she'd used a client's $50,000 deposit to pay off one of her high-interest loans, a felony. The client, an elderly man, had filed a police report. This wasn't just a career-ending mistake, this was a life-ending one. She was facing jail time. My $8.05 M Beach house wasn't just a get-out-of-debt-free card for her. It was her only card. She must have believed, in her narcissistic delusion, that if she could just get her hands on that money, she could pay the man back, smooth things over, and escape the consequences. The first crack in the silence came from Marcus. He called me, his voice thick with shame. "Rosie, I'm at my apartment. I had no idea." "About the money or about the vacation?" I asked, my voice not unkind. Marcus was weak, but I didn't believe he was malicious. "About any of it," he said, and he sounded like he was crying. "I swear to you, Vanessa just said. She said you'd been so sick and she wanted to give you a surprise by getting the whole family together at the beach. She said she'd clear it with you. Then, when we were on the way, she said you were having a bad day and to just let you rest. I thought it was weird, but I wanted the kids to see the ocean. I let myself believe her. And the part about me signing the house over. She brought it up to me and Mom at dinner the first night," he admitted, his voice low. "She said you were drowning in your assets and that we, as a family, needed to help you manage them. She made it sound like we were doing you a favor. Mom just nodded along, but it felt so wrong, and then your envelope came." He took a shaky breath. "Rosie, what she's done, the stuff you said, is it all true?" "Yes, Marcus, all of it, and it's worse than I told her. She's going to be arrested. It's not a if, it's a when." He was silent for a long time. "Oh God, Mom, she has no idea." "No," I said. She doesn't, she just thinks I'm being cruel. She thinks Vanessa is the victim. This was the second phase of the problem. My mother was now a shield, protecting Vanessa from the consequences and painting me as the villain. I needed to break that spell. I booked a flight. I was still weak, but this was a fire that had to be put out in person. I told Marcus to arrange a meeting at my mother's house. Just you and Mom. Tell her I want to apologize. Tell her whatever you need to, but Vanessa is not to be there. 3 days later, I walked into my mother's living room. She and Marcus were sitting on her floral sofa, the air thick with tension. My mother, Brenda, looked pale, her face set in lines of disapproval. "Rosie," she said, her voice trembling with barely suppressed anger. "I am so disappointed in you, humiliating your sister, kicking your own family out, after everything she is going through." "What exactly is she going through, Mom?" I asked, remaining standing. She is struggling, her business. It's hard. You, of all people with all your wealth, should understand that. You should be helping her, not attacking her." "Helping her," I repeated, "like she helped me by trying to steal my house." "She wasn't stealing," Mom cried, standing up. "It's a house. It's bricks and glass. We are your family. How can you choose a thing over us?" "She's not just struggling, Mom," Marcus cut in, his voice quiet but firm. "Rosie, tell her what you told me." I looked at my mother, at her face, so desperate to believe the comfortable lie. "Mom," I said, "I didn't come here to argue about the house. I came here to tell you the truth. Vanessa is not struggling. She's a criminal." I laid it all out. The $150,000 in debt, the lawsuits, and finally, the felony. She stole $50,000 from an elderly client to pay off her own loans. The police are involved. She is going to be arrested, and she is going to prison. My mother stared at me, her face ashen. "No," she whispered. "No, that's a lie. You're lying. You're saying this to win, to justify what you did." "Am I?" I said. I pulled an envelope from my bag, not a legal notice this time, but a copy of the police report and the client's filed lawsuit. "Read it." Essie took the papers, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them. She read the first page, her eyes scanning the official letterhead, the case number, the plaintiff's name. She read the second page, detailing the fraudulent transfer. Her knees buckled. She didn't make a sound, she just collapsed back onto the sofa, the papers fluttering to the floor. The spell was broken. The image of her perfect, victimized daughter was shattered, replaced by the ugly, irrefutable truth. The showdown came, as it so often does, at a planned family event. It was my mother's 79th birthday dinner, scheduled a week after my visit. After the revelation, my mother had gone into a state of shock, refusing to speak to anyone, Vanessa included. But the dinner, a long-standing reservation at her favorite restaurant, was still on the books. Marcus had called me, begging me to come. "Mom needs you, Rosie, and Vanessa's coming." She's been calling Mom nonstop, crying, saying you're lying, saying you're trying to destroy her. She thinks she can win Mom back over. "She can try," I'd said. I knew this was it. This was the final confrontation. I arrived at the restaurant, a private room booked in the back. Marcus and my mother were already there, sitting in tense silence. I looked at my mother. She had aged 10 years in a week. She looked small, frail, and utterly broken. Then Vanessa swept in, 5 minutes late, wrapped in a faux fur stole and smelling of expensive perfume I'd probably paid for. She was putting on a brave face, her smile brittle and bright. "Mom, happy birthday," she trilled, kissing the air near our mother's cheek. She saw me, and her face tightened for just a second. "Rosie, what a surprise. I didn't think you'd be well enough to come out." "I'm feeling much stronger, thank you," I said, my voice even. We sat. The air was so thick you could have cut it with a steak knife. We ordered drinks, the silence broken only by the clinking of ice. Finally, Vanessa picked up her wine glass. "Well," she said, "I'd like to make a toast, to Mom and to family. We've had our misunderstandings, but family is everything. It's the most important thing, more important than things, than houses." She looked directly at me, a sharp, challenging glint in her eye. "Is it Vanessa?" I asked, setting my water glass down. "Of course," she said, her smile wavering. "Mom knows that, right, Mom?" My mother just stared at her plate. "You know, Rosie," Vanessa continued, emboldened by my mother's silence, "I've been thinking, and I forgive you for your terrible accusations, for your paranoia. I know you've been sick, I know you're not yourself. And I'm willing to let it all go, for Mom's sake." The audacity, the sheer, magnificent gall of it. She was trying to paint me as the unhinged, unwell villain and herself as the magnanimous victim, right in front of the two people who knew the truth. I just smiled. "That's very generous of you, Vanessa, but your forgiveness isn't what I'm worried about." "Oh," she said, sipping her wine. "And what are you worried about, dear sister?" "I'm worried," I said, leaning forward slightly, "about your arraignment." Vanessa choked on her wine, a spray of red misting the white tablecloth. She coughed, her eyes wide with panic. What did you say?" "Your arraignment," I repeated, my voice carrying clearly in the small room. "For the $50,000 you stole from Mr. Abernathy. I spoke to my lawyer, David. He's acquaintances with the DA. He says they have a very, very solid case. Bank transfers are so tidy, don't you think? So easy to trace." Vanessa's face went from pale to a mottled, ugly red. You bitch," she hissed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You did this, you told them." "I didn't have to," I said. "Mr. Abernathy did, I just confirmed the details." "Mom," Vanessa shrieked, turning to our mother. "Are you going to let her do this to me? Are you going to let her destroy your daughter? Tell her to stop. Tell her to pay him back. She has the money. She can fix this." And there it was, the final, desperate plea, the endgame. All her manipulation, all her lies, all her faked affection, boiling down to one last, pathetic demand. "Save me. Pay for my crimes." My mother, who had been frozen, slowly lifted her head. She looked at Vanessa, her eyes dead. "Pay him back," she whispered. Like you paid back Rosie, for her car, for her mortgage, for her kindness." "Mom, this is different," Vanessa pleaded, her eyes darting between us. "No," Mom said, her voice shaking but finding a thread of steel I hadn't heard in years. "It's not, it's the same. It has always been the same. You take, and you lie, and you tried to use me against my own daughter." "I did it for us," Vanessa cried, "for the family." "There is no us," my mother suddenly yelled, slamming her hand on the table, making the glasses jump. "There is just you, and your greed. You made me believe. You are not my daughter, not like this." That was the blow, not the legal charges, not my anger, but our mother's final, devastating judgment. Vanessa stared at her mouth open, her mask of civility completely gone. She looked ruined. Suddenly, two men in dark suits, who had been sitting at a nearby table, stood up. They approached our table. "Vanessa," one of them asked. Vanessa's head whipped around. "We're detectives," he said, flipping open a badge. "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of grand larceny and elder fraud. Please stand up." My sister looked at me, her eyes wide with terror and a dawning, horrifying realization. You set this up," she whispered. I had no idea they would be here, but I didn't correct her. I just looked at her, my face calm. "I told you, Vanessa, I believe in solid structures, and yours just collapsed." She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just deflated. The fight was gone. She stood up, her hands trembling, and let them lead her out of the restaurant, past the shocked diners, her faux fur stole still draped over her chair. The restaurant was deathly quiet after she was led away. Marcus stared at the door, his face a mask of shock and, I thought, a small, sad hint of relief. My mother, Brenda, just closed her eyes, and a single tear traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't say anything. I just reached across the table and put my hand over hers. She gripped it like a drowning woman. We didn't finish dinner. Vanessa's downfall was swift and total. Faced with irrefutable bank records and the testimony of Mr. Abernathy, her case was hopeless. My lawyer, David, made sure Mr. Abernathy was paid back in full from a trust I'd set up, which was then secured by a lien against any and all of Vanessa's future assets, ensuring she would be paying me back for the rest of her life. She took a plea bargain and was sentenced to 3 years in a low-security prison, plus another 5 of probation. She lost her real estate license permanently. The $150,000 in credit card debt and the $75,000 loan were her own problems to solve. I was done bailing her out. My relationship with my mother was rebuilt, slowly, painfully. It took months of therapy for her to understand her role as an enabler, to see how her desire for peace had actually funded Vanessa's destructive path. The guilt was heavy on her, but it was also cleansing. The illusion of her perfect, put-upon daughter was gone, and for the first time she saw me clearly, not as a resource, but as her child, the one who had been holding the family together while the other was tearing it apart. Marcus and I became closer. The shared trauma and his genuine remorse forged a new bond. I helped him set up a small, sustainable music school for underprivileged kids, giving him a purpose that didn't rely on my handouts, but on his own talent. He and his children are still the only guests I allow at the beach house. He always calls first. As for the house, it's quieter now, and I find I like it that way. I spent my first healthy weekend there in the fall, after the storms. I sat on the deck, the same one Marcus had called me from, and watched the waves crash. The house had been built to withstand hurricanes, its foundations driven deep into the bedrock. I had designed it to be unshakable. As I sat there, wrapped in a blanket, I realized that I had in fact been describing myself. The betrayal had been a storm, but my foundations held. The structure was sound, and I was, at long last, at peace.